Hello, this is Joe with Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike your match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
And welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show.
Ooh, this is nice!
And this is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings, a live fire, fun, and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter that was sent out a little tardy. I had it saved in the draft form, forgot about it. And then around 5:30 or so, after I got home from work, I remembered that it was sitting in the draft section since the weekend. My apologies. If you were waiting for it ever so diligently at 5, as it normally gets sent out, that was my mistake. But it did get sent out, and it said basically this, coming up at 9:14, or 14 past the first hour. Our pal Robert Moss joins the show. Yes, now you would typically find Robert Moss 35 past the first hour here in the second Tuesday of the month. However, my new quarterly guest, David Gafford, who I openly have a new man crush on, evidently doesn't know how to stagger out 3 months at a clip, and he's on the road, and I think he was doing some kind of a barbecue catering job for senior citizens down in Florida, and wasn't going to have the setup in order to sound great and do a wonderful segment, all this fun stuff that we have come to know and expect from a David Gafford from the Barbecue Lab. And he said, is there any way we could figure this out ahead of time so I can get them all on the calendar going forward? I said, yeah, absolutely, because, I mean, I don't know, we started in January and it's quarterly, so I just figure, +3 and we're back in April, +4, we're back in August, and then whatever this month is, and away you go, you've satisfied 4 quarterly segments. But me expecting and what other people do, again, what do we talk about expectations? If you boil it down to all the troubles in your life, missed expectation. And here's where we are this month. So I reached out to Robert Moss, and I said, any chance you want to bump up 30 minutes early? And he said, absolutely. So we'll go Robert Moss 14 past the first hour. We'll do a little housekeeping / open segment 35 past the first hour, whatever time is left. And then we will get right into the second hour, because for the entire second hour at the TOTH, we have Melissa Cookston, 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. And we will run as long as it takes. Again, the beauty of being the second hour guest when we do an origin story is if we're short an hour, then we can end the show right there. If we go to top of the hour, aka 11 o'clock Eastern, we can stop right there. And since it's my show and we are not FCC regulated by any stretch of the imagination, if we crest over an hour in length of time for this interview like we did last week and the week before, no problem. We can go as long as it takes. Travis Clark was an hour and 15 minutes, I would say. And then last week, Emily Detweiler was running a good hour 7 to hour and 10 minutes. And we'll see what Melissa Cookston puts together here in the second hour of the show. So that's how it's laying out here this evening. A Robert Moss in about 8 minutes from now. And then a complete second hour Melissa Cookston origin story. So make sure you're sharing that all on social media as well, which, by the way, you can follow me socially on these platforms: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can go to YouTube, which is at youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we happen to have a new YouTube poll question of the week. We're asking everybody this, including all guests. Did you miss the poll question of the Did you miss the poll question of the week last week? You know what I'm saying here? I'm not asking if you missed it like you didn't catch it. I'm saying, did you have a longing for it since it wasn't there? We had 2 back-to-back origin stories, so there was no time for nonsense, shenanigans, tomfoolery, and or hoodwinkedness. There was no YouTube poll question of the week last week, so I'm asking you if you missed it. And currently 75% of you are saying, yes, you missed the poll question of the week last week. So there you have it. And results of the poll question of the week from like 2 weeks ago. Did we get the 2025 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame class correct last month? And 90% of you said yes. Indeed, we did. So we'll start here this evening raving about the show from last week, as I just mentioned, back-to-back 2025 Barbecue Central Show Guest Hall of Fame origin stories, and one wasn't better than the other. Andy led off and had a wildly great first hour, a ton of things that I didn't know about Andy that we learned about during his time in the first hour. I always thought he was an East Coast born and bred kid. Lo and behold, no, he's a Seattle, Washington raised kid in the hippie part of the era of the early 70s, early 80s, and or 70s getting into the early 80s, and then doing a cross-country move to Needham, Massachusetts, where I figured he was from originally, and then a whole bunch of great stories that Andy shared. However, not to be outdone and or one-upped, Emily Detweiler also delivering perfectly. And I got a lot of emails about Emily's segment that sounded something along the lines of this, quote, Greg, did Emily just say that she had to tell her mom to, quote, call before she shows up at their house anymore because you never know what might be going on, close quote. And the answer is simply this. Yes, she said that. She did. And no, it's not hard to understand what she was talking about. She was talking about get down time. Mom can't be showing up at 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. in the afternoon unannounced, because there could be some adult wrestling that is happening. Now the phone is ringing. Hey, I'm trying to get in and see those grandkids, but all of the doors and windows are locked, and the shades are down, and the drapes are pulled, and the blinds are closed. And why is the noise machine running? Mom, because it's get down time, afternoon delight. Ever heard of it? So we have to have a talk, Mom. You can't just show up at the house anymore because me and the hubs want to get some get down time every now and again. And we don't have to be worried that we're not going to be able to, watch me on this, finish in time to make sure like it never happened. Okay, Mom? Can we agree that we don't all want to be in this weird, precarious position? Now, give me anywhere between 3 to 7 minutes, and then I'll be downstairs to open it up, okay? How about that? How about that? So, wonderful origin stories, to say the least. Also, got this note from Mike Lang via the website request for informations page. Mike Lang, show feedback, facepalm here for all the times, Mike, they've been a lot of times, for all the times I've heard you mention the newsletter. I realize I've never subscribed to it. I'm remedying my transgression this very moment. Well, good news, Mike. Maybe you didn't realize this, but after you sign up for the newsletter, as a thank you from me to you, you get my very own homemade barbecue sauce recipe. And now, because Another Pint Please has it in his dirty mitts, I expect you to make it. I expect you to showcase the sauce on Another Pint Please Instagram. Also, I happen to think that you should be showcasing this on the Grillographer's Cut, whatever the hell your new Instagram account is, because one's not enough. And by the way, you're welcome in advance. And no, you don't need to use Texas pepper jelly in it. I just recommend it. You don't have to. Right before Robert Moss shows up here in just a few mementos, we're going to talk about the Primo Grill. It is a ceramic cooker. It is a fuel miser. It is something that you can go high heat and direct grilling with. It is also something that you can put heat deflectors in and then go low and slow, or maybe you would want to catch it somewhere between low and slow and super high heat. Stephen Reichland would call that a smoke roast, easily achievable in the Primo Grill. Why? Because it's oval, it's not round like everything else on the market. Forget the round cookers. I mean, do you want to be like everybody else? If everybody else jumped off the round ceramic grill bridge, would you also jump? No. Central Light's way too smart for this nonsense. That's why we are always deciding to go outside of the norm, break the mold, whatever cliche you want to add at this point. We go oval. We go extra large oval. We go double extra large oval if we have them available to us, because we know that's where it's at. We also know that Primo is supplying some of the greatest accessories for the Primo Grill. So all needs are met. It is 2 cookers in one. You can use 1 load of charcoal multiple times. By the way, don't fall for the bullshit. If you want to use briquette charcoal in your Primo ceramic grill, A, you can do that. B, you can snuff the air out, let it all extinguish itself. Give it a little shake with the kick-ash basket. I got to talk about that at some point soon. You can relight the briquette charcoal. Oh, listen, everybody. I have a lot of experience with this. I am not somebody that likes to waste. PrimoGrill.com. We're back with Robert Moss right after this.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard, makers of Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, Fireboard Beacon, and the wireless Fireboard Pulse. When you're using the Fireboard app and you have your devices connected to your wireless network, they're accessible anywhere in the world. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. Good folks over at Fireboard. My next guest, contributing editor to Southern Living Magazine, which we'll be talking about here at length, and a 2023 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, as you would remember, We just put in the 2025 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame class a handful of weeks ago. We raced to the hotline and welcome back our pal, Robert Moss, who, by the way, is much like the government helping out the banks in 2008, is bailing my ass out here in 2025,
Once
October
again,
14th,
yes.
once again. So appreciate you jumping in a little bit early here this evening due to some scheduling conflicts. But we had last month off because we had some... I forget what it was. I mean, that was a whole month ago. Maybe there was a scheduling conflict. Maybe you're out of town. Maybe it was my fault, whatever.
No, I think I was here last month. I think it was the previous month I was out.
All right. So that's right. So we still have too much to get to. And everybody knows that 14 past the first hour is a smidge longer. So give us a little more runway here to clear off some things that have been sitting on the agenda. But before we do that, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including this. Did you miss poll question of the week last week? Yes or no?
No, I did not. But I only because I didn't notice it wasn't there. I like the question of the week, but I realized I did listen to the origin stories, and I didn't realize that I didn't even notice it was missing. So, but I don't want you to get rid of it because I do like the question.
I think that goes to the quality of the content that you were so enraptured in that you didn't even think about the usual nonsense.
That's correct.
Did you have any takes on an Emily Detweiler or an Andy Husbands as you worked your way through those?
I mean, not really. I just love the origin stories in general. You never know where people come from and anything else. I love the Travis Clark one as well. That one. But no, I like knowing where people come from, how they move around, how they get into what they're doing. Because I think anytime you drill in somebody's backstory, no one really gets somewhere through like a master plan. They sort of just end up doing one thing to the other, and I like that aspect to it.
All right, so we're going to start with the Southern Living portion of this interview right off the rip. And the release of the top 50 barbecue joints is out, actually posted, let's say, just shy of a month at this point. So high level, how much has changed in the barbecue scene since the release of the last list, which was back in 2023?
Yeah, so in 2 years, a lot has changed actually, and I sort of debated whether we should even do one in 2025. We do like to do them at least 2 years apart, but should we maybe do them 3 years apart? I was thinking, but then I took a look at the list, and this year, this time around, there was a lot more change in the list itself and then just in the places I was visiting than over the previous years. I think I'd have to go back and actually look at the list. I think there were 3 of the top 10 were new to the top 10, weren't there before, including the number 1 restaurant in the list, which wasn't even open 3 years ago. It had just opened. I don't think it was on by It Lasts Us All because I think it literally just opened its doors and I hadn't even gotten to it yet. So there has been a lot of change in the barbecue world, a lot of change in the list. One thing, 5 restaurants that had been on previous top 50 lists had closed. And which is unusual. Usually there's 1, maybe 2 that close their doors. But the sort of top barbecue places tend to be very long lived. And so we're seeing a lot of places start to close, but we're seeing a lot of new interesting places come on board. And they're not just new, they're new and interesting, exciting, and doing new things. So there was quite a bit of shakeup on the list this year, at least for me, and for the way I think of it compared to past lists where things move up and down. Maybe there'll be one new one here, one new one there, but this time it was pretty different.
You had mentioned that you saw a closing of more than you usually see. Is it because of business environment specifically, or was there something else?
A combination of things. I think you are seeing some business environment. You saw some restaurants get a little overextended, perhaps. Opening new places, they weren't quite ready to take on the scale. You see some others, and these are just ones that have been on the list, but other ones who might have been candidates who sort of fell off the bubble. You're seeing a lot of old school places where someone's ready to retire. They don't have anyone to come take over the restaurant. Particularly, these are places that are not in big cities, and they often will close the doors because they can't find someone to take it over. And you're seeing that more and more these days. I think it's something I've written about and talked about, but you're seeing this divergence between this great guy named John Tanner who writes a barbecue blog. He calls it City Q versus sort of country Q or small town barbecue. And you're seeing that sort of divergence just get wider and wider, where you see lots of, another thing on the list was a lot of the places that sort of went up in the rankings actually sort of did so by expanding what they were doing. Sometimes that was adding additional locations, but more for the list, it was a lot of them would move from one location to a larger, bigger format. They would add a new menu items. They have more room in the pit room. So you see folks, and these are usually in the larger cities who are able to support that. They are getting big. They are adding all kinds of stuff. They're adding full dinner service, full bars, all pastry chefs, all that kind of stuff. Whereas the smaller town, off the side of the road kind of places, often are struggling to make ends meet. And then when the one generation is ready to retire, the kids don't want to do it, and they don't have anybody to take over, so they're closing their doors. Now, it's certainly the case of several of the former restaurants that sort of fell off the list.
I don't want to diverge here, but we were just talking about it and it rang a bell for me. Did you watch the is it Al? I'm gonna forget his name. Guy in Texas. He did the Valentina Tex-Mex barbecue video. Did you watch that?
Oh, the video.
Yeah.
I've not seen the whole thing. I saw it, but I don't know that I watched the entire interview. I need to go back and do that.
Wow.
Miguel from Valentina's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually now is we'll talk about the newsletter. So at some point, I just wrote about him. He's now signed on as a pitmaster at a new barbecue restaurant. But yeah, he definitely got out over skis, expanded too fast. So some people who expanded into big formats have done well, but that's not an easy thing to do. And usually getting overextended is often the downfall for a lot of barbecue entrepreneurs. And that definitely was the case for Miguel.
I don't know if I'm usually a fan of barbecue documentaries, but this one was incredible. It was done really well. Is it Al Wasserberger? Is that his name?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that
Al, I apologize. I apologize if that's wrong. Al's right, but they're doing the whole thing from Miguel's house, and a part of it is Miguel cooking while they're learning about the whole story of how it started out as the food trailer, then it expanded into that huge build out, and as you said, got way over skis. Definitely something to go watch. I was completely enthralled with it. It was a very easy watch. I don't know if it was 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but definitely suggesting that you would go back and take that all into, Robert. I think you would get not a kick out of it necessarily, but it would be worth a watch, I think.
No, yeah, and it's definitely on my list. And Valentina's was one of the ones that was formerly on my top 50, but they moved to a big new location in Buda, Texas, south of Austin, and it didn't work out so well. Unlike some of the other folks in the list who did move to new, larger locations and really sort of, I think, got even better as they did it.
All right, we have a North Carolina barbecue question coming in from Instant Chat, so let's go ahead and ask this to the expert. A question for Robert when the timing is right about Allen and Sons in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I drive by it all the time. It's south. It's south of
it's
Chapel
Pittsburgh,
Hill,
I think, south of Chapel Hill. Yep.
Is this the one owned by a different group other than the original?
That is correct. So Allen and Son, the son in Allen and Son was Keith. Well, he's still Keith Allen, but at some point his dad had a restaurant. And then he sort of opened one north of Chapel Hill. So you had the Allen and Son north of Chapel Hill, one south of Chapel Hill in Pittsburgh, I believe. They sold that one. The family did to a different family. Keith Allen kept running the one Allen and Son north of Chapel Hill, which was on my top 50 list for a long time. Closed it, probably 5-7 years back. At a certain point, again, had no one to take it over. The one south of Chapel Hill, it's good. It's good North Carolina barbecue. I don't think it was ever at the level of the original Allen or the older Allen and Son up north of town. I think they switched over to gas cooking at a certain point. If you ever went to Keith Allen's, I actually had the fortune to get to go hang out in the pit room a little bit with Keith Allen while he was cooking. It was just this incredible brick pits and all that kind of stuff. That place was incredible. So originally, same family. split at some point. They sold the Pittsburgh restaurant. That's the one that's still going. It's a different family. Still pretty good. I'd say drop in, check it out. But I always had a soft spot in my heart for Keith Allen's place up north of Chapel Hill. And unfortunately, that one is no more.
All right, so getting back to the list, just a condensed version of how you put the list together.
Oh, how did the condensed version? Oh, gosh. Well, I have a spreadsheet. Let's start with that. And it's really just a convenient way to sort things. I got my long list. I've got the list from the last time I did it. I got the 50 there. And then I sort of marked the ones I need to go back and visit. And then I have my candidate list. So I'm always putting ones that I think I need to go visit. And, probably at some point I have about 100 candidates and I'm knocking them out and I'm visiting that. And then I just sort the list as I go. So, that's why doing a spreadsheet is really easy to copy and, cut and paste. And I'm always moving up and down and checking them out. And it's not until, if I didn't have a deadline, I would never finish sorting the list because I keep sorting it all the way up until I just have to, send the copy in. At a certain point, though, I will say the list is sort of settled out in the order I thought it was in. And then I have to go write the blurbs, which I always think, how hard could it be? I just got to write 50 paragraphs about barbecue. And about 10, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. So I'm writing the paragraphs, and editing them. But as I do that, then I start moving around. But ultimately, when I'm finished with all the little blurbs and I'm reading through the list, then I'm doing the final sorting. So up to the moment I've already written about it, because I'm like, having read what I wrote and thought about it, that really is so much more interesting, than moving around. And then finally I have to, hit send and send it over to my editor. So it really does sort right up to the last minute. But we've talked about it in the past. I don't have a score sheet where I'm ranking. It's not like I'm judging that the Jack just finished up. I've actually judged the Jack before. I don't have a score sheet like you would at competition barbecue. I'm rewarding 2 points and taking points away. It's very impressionistic. It's very much like, okay, which one do I need to do? But if you're sorting, I think it's best often to just compare two things and say, if I could only recommend you go to this one or this one, they're both great. You should go to them both. But if you can only go to one, and not sort them. And so you sort of sort until it gets to the end. So that's about the extent of my method. And at some point, the clock runs out and I have to hit submit and I'm done.
You don't have minions up and down, whatever the South is saying, hey, we'll take these 20, 30, and then you come up for our final 10 in order to judge?
Well, I have plenty of minions and what might call scouts out there who are basically very passionate barbecue eaters whose opinions I trust. And they always recommend places. I'm always asking, hey, I'm going to Virginia. Where should I go up there? People who know that area well. So I definitely lean on the expertise of others, but that's more to develop the long list, if you will. And then ultimately, I'm not asking anybody else to go eat and score and send that back in. We're not judging this by committee. And I'm happy to say this is a very personal, idiosyncratic list, and it's based upon my own experience eating, but also my own sort of historical preferences and all my own biases and prejudices and anything else I bring to the table. So I'm really the only one scoring and judging it, though I definitely take a ton of input from lots of different people who are, I consider them sort of the scouts or the feeders who I lean upon for recommendations, and definitely have gotten a lot of great recommendations over the years.
What kind of reaction have you had since release?
Surprisingly good this time around. I thought we had a new restaurant at the top of the list. I thought I might get a little more pushback or blowback on that one. But I really didn't. I think by and large the reaction has been pretty good. There's always people complaining, and the biggest thing I get a lot of emails from folks who. I love the emails from people who say, hey, love the list, but here's a couple places you should try, because these are the people I lean on to put on the list. I don't like the ones that say, well, clearly you've never been to barbecue joint X because you would put it on the list. But I've been to barbecue joint X and I didn't like it so much. So, don't assume I've not been there, that it didn't show up on the list because I just didn't make it to it. But no, that's about the worst of it is a couple of emails saying, well, clearly you've missed this place because you've never been there. I said, no, this didn't think it was that good. I haven't had too many people this time around accuse me of being, evil, corrupt, biased, et cetera. I think it raised a few eyebrows based upon the number of South Carolina places on the list. But I don't think that is because I'm from South Carolina. I'd say look at past lists. There weren't that many. I think the Carolinas are having a moment. There's a lot of really interesting, good new barbecue in the Carolinas like right now. And I think that's one reason why there's such a representational list compared to the previous lists.
Have you ever been approached about taking a bribe for either inclusion on the list or a better spot?
No, I can't imagine how much. Never. I can't imagine how much money anyone would actually be willing to shell out for the list. But
50 grand.
50 grand. I don't think anyone would ever offer 50 grand for anything. Food writers will probably do it.
If you're number one on the list, you don't think you can make them 50 grand easy? That you don't think that's a good ROI?
I don't know. I think I don't know, but I've certainly never been approached by anybody offering anything. The most I get is somebody, and it's usually a publicist saying, "Hey, please come visit," whatever. Which I usually even respond to, or if I do, say, "Yeah, if I'm in the area, I'll drop by." But no, never been offered any compensation of any sort, though. I'm not above considering, but it's got to be some big numbers if you want me to give up what few principles I have.
How much does your list affect barbecue, the barbecue restaurant world? I guess in comparison to like a Daniel Vaughn, who seems to have a stranglehold on how his list in Texas affects Texas barbecue restaurants.
Yeah, Texas is a world of its own in a lot of ways, and there's nothing that's going to ever quite be like that Texas monthly list in terms of the influence it has on the market.
Is it too much influence?
I don't know if it's too much influence so much as I'm always amazed at how many people will go and line up for hours just based upon the fact that I read about it, on this list. So I'm not sure if it's too much influence so much as just it's sort of amazing how much credence people do put in that sort of ranking. I had an experience, I won't name names, but where traveling through Texas, and I was going to try to get to one of these very highly ranked Texas places, and I got there way, way early. There's a giant line. It's 100 degrees outside, and I'm like, good God, I'm going to die if I said, the line was already out in the sun. It's not worth it. I'll come back and just sort of, at the end of toward the end of the line, and ended up driving 20 minutes to another place, which I knew was good. And I said, well, I'll pull in. There was no line at all. And I was like, well, okay. So I drove around the corner, found a coffee shop, got a nice iced coffee because it was it was 100 degrees, went out and, and got back. By the time I got my coffee and got back, there was one person in line in front of me. So I was second in line. Oh. And then the doors opened like 10 minutes later. I walked in, ate, fantastic, had a wonderful meal, drove her out, and went back to the other place and got in line. And, so it was like they weren't that much different, right? The difference was one was in the top 10 and one wasn't, on the list. So I'm never, I don't think they have too much influence. But I'm just always amazed how much people will just go by this is X on a list versus let me just look at the website and see if it looks good. Because you find a lot of great barbecue that way, and you miss out a lot if you're, spending 3 hours in line in the hot sun and you don't have time to get anywhere else by the time you eat.
I asked Daniel when he was on a couple weeks ago, like, do you have pressure on you as you put this list out? Because it does appear that there are a lot of people affected to the positive. I wouldn't say negative if you're not on the list, but certainly positive if you're on the list, and even more positive if you're top 10. And he said no, but do you feel like there would be pressure on you if you were Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just put it this way. I've been reviewing restaurants, not just barbecue, but also fine dining restaurants and all that. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me when I'm going out and writing a restaurant review of any sort. And the reason I mention restaurant reviews is that's a longer format. I'm doing 1,500 words. I'm doing critique of the food. I'm much more judgmental. if I go to a barbecue restaurant and it just sucks, it's not going to show up on the list. So I don't have to even really write a honest critique. But I feel a lot of pressure there because this is somebody's entire livelihood. They spent years. They put money into it. You know, they have a lot riding on it, and I feel a lot of pressure to be fair about it. I don't know that the restaurants on my list that are established and have been around forever. Let's take Dreamland down in Tuscaloosa, or Big Bob Gibson, or the Rendezvous. My putting them anywhere on the list, much less where I put them, isn't really going to affect the traffic because everybody's heard of them, right? They have a reputation out there. It's the newer places or the smaller places that have not gotten a lot of attention. That's sort of where putting somebody on a list, I think, really puts a spotlight on them. People will hear about a restaurant for the first time, and they will come visit just because they saw it on the list. I do remember actually one of the restaurants that closed that was on previous top 50 list was a place called Helen's Barbecue in Brownsville, Tennessee, just about an hour outside of Memphis. And I had written not the top 50 list, but I written a profile of Tennessee barbecue and profiled Helen's. And it's so funny. I was going there and I was in line behind somebody who was talking to the other person, said, "Oh, we just read about this thing in Southern Living. We figured we'd take a detour off the interstate to come visit." And I was like, man, okay, now I feel like, I actually have influenced people to come do it. I was trying to be incognito, so I didn't tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I wrote that." Though there was a framed picture of it on the wall right up above the window.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the list here. And I think it would be foolish if we start at 50 and work our way down to number one, of course. But if you look at, let's say, from 11 and then back to 50, some of the big movers and shakers or places that stuck out to you, in outside of the top 10.
Outside the top 10. Okay. Well, let's see. Number of new places are in there. Let me talk about a couple. So there's I'm sort of scanning over the list to see which ones sort of grab me. Some of the new ones, there's Barb's BBQ, or however you say it, in downtown Lockhart, right on the square across from the courthouse. That one is in the top 50, a new restaurant. I just think it's interesting because Chuck Carnichart is the owner, pitmaster there, and she's doing some really interesting stuff. And it's a really great place. Her lamb chops, she has these smoked lamb chops, are one of the best things I've had in a long time. And so it's really interesting to see Lockhart, the sort of classic, capital of Texas barbecue, getting one of these new school places. Another one that's on there is Allman's Barbecue in Fredericksburg, Virginia. There, I was actually, one surprising thing, 3 Virginia restaurants made it onto the top 50 list, which I didn't really realize until I went. I did a little tally of the state by state to do the count. I was like, oh wow, three Virginia restaurants. When was the last time Virginia ever made it on the list? Allman's in Fredericksburg is one that made it on the list. It's this old school place that's been around since probably the 50s. It's this cool little brick building, this little triangular area right outside of Fredericksburg. But the owner brought in a partner who, they got rid of the old gas assist pits, which they installed a long time ago, brought in wood-fired cookers and sort of revitalized it. And it was really just wonderful. So you get this great combination of really sort of modern craft barbecue sensibility, but in that old school space. In fact, over the counter, they have the old menu board from like the 1950s where barbecue sandwiches are 15 cents or whatever, which is still back there. And so Virginia really is making a comeback. Virginia was where the American barbecue tradition really took root very firmly, right before the revolution, and then almost disappeared. And, there was, for a long time, nothing called Virginia style barbecue. Another one on the list is called Redemption Barbecue. This is a brand new one. It's in a strip mall west of Richmond. But a guy named John Vest is really digging in and trying to self-consciously trying to create a Virginia style barbecue, using old classic sauces, using all local meats, all these heritage meats and everything else, cooking everything on wood. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in Virginia. And then one of the top 10s is from Virginia as well, a fairly new one. But those are some of the interesting things. And top 50 were some of these new players coming on the scene and really sort of shaking things up a little bit. It's not the same old as we've seen over the years.
If we're looking at top 10 now, biggest surprise in the top 10.
I gotta say the number one is the biggest surprise. I don't know if you want to hold that one for a minute. Let me highlight two others. One of them is that Virginia one I was talking about. So I'll tease that one. It's a place called Mama Jean's in Roanoke, Virginia, and it's I sort of have this rule. I don't really do food trucks because they move around too much. It's a little hard to do it. So Mama Jean's, sort of moved around, but they finally, settled down in the place. They're finishing up the restaurant that they're building out, and they sort of have a permanent place. But it's one of these just fusions of barbecue from all over the place. And Madison Ruckles, the pit master there, he's actually has Charleston roots. He sort of cut his teeth at Home Team and some other barbecue places down here, but then moved back up to Virginia, which is I think where his wife's hometown, and has created this great barbecue operation. Everything there just blows me away. It's one of these intense places where everything from the ribs to the burgers to the side dishes are fantastic. So I'd highlight that one. Also new to the top 10, Leroy and Lewis, another former food truck. They also have been around for a while. Parked their food truck in a coffee complex, or this coffee shop, beer garden in Austin years ago. They finally built their own brick and mortar restaurant, and it's like everything they were doing in the beer garden times 10. They've always done sustainable meats from Texas ranches, doing different things. They're not doing your standard Texas cuts of meat. They've got these flat iron steaks they smoke. They've got just all kinds. They do whole hog. They do which is unusual in Texas, but they do a good job with that. And now they've added a bar with like a whole bunch of Texas wines. All the wine is from Texas. They have all these great cocktails. It's just a fantastic place. And I think that landed them right about, I think it landed in spot number 5 on the list.
Yep.
Is sort of doubling down and going big. And then number 1, which did surprise me. I went back and forth on whether I should do it or not, but should we go ahead and dive in and talk about City Limits Barbecue in West Columbia, South Carolina?
Number one.
For the first time. In fact, it's only been open 2 years. It's just such an impressive operation. And every time I go, I discover new things. Pitmaster owner's name is Robbie Robinson. He's just like hardcore, sort of got started doing a food truck like a lot of people. Very Texas inspired, was cooking Texas style brisket, Texas style ribs on all these offset smokers, very much bringing Texas barbecue to Columbia, South Carolina. And then somewhere along the way, he's a South Carolina native. He decided, I'm going to start doing a little South Carolina stuff. And he's gotten more and more into it. His ribs, his direct heat ribs, which is totally different than anything you do in Texas. He started cooking them over sort of like whole hog style over direct coals. Maybe the best ribs I've ever had in my life. He's got great hash, great mustard sauce. I mean, literally every single thing on the menu is fantastic. So I went back and forth. Should I put him on the top of the list? Should I not? And fortunately, it's within a driving distance from my house, about 2 hour drive. So as I was finishing up the list, it was a Sunday. I said to my wife, "Hey, let's ride up the road." So we rode up the road, and
2 hours is a ride up the road.
Well, I mean, for a Sunday, a little Sunday drive. So we headed up the road just to verify and that. Does this really belong there? And of course, everything was fantastic. It blew us all away again. So yeah, that last little visit put it over the top. I said, yeah, I'm going to definitely put them number 1, and I'll stand by it despite the brick bats. And I'm sure I was expecting a lot more blowback to that than I got. But if anyone's ever been there and tried it, I've never heard anybody go there and say no. It's no good.
So as we look through the top 10, as you kind of mentioned, this is not a heavily laden Carolinas or something other than Texas top 10. City Limits, as you said, Texas inspired. Yep. Snow's Barbecue is a well-known Texas barbecue restaurant. And Louis Miller Barbecue, Texas restaurant. Leroy and Lewis, Texas. And there was Lewis Barbecue, South Carolina, but that's he was the pit master at La Barbecue for years before he moved out to Carolina.
He is definitely Texas, and it is very much a Texas style joint. You know, in Charleston, though, I can make a case of why it's so much higher than other ones because in addition to being just a fantastic, top notch food, it's a wonderful operation, and he does all this really interesting stuff. He brings his own biography into it. He's from El Paso, Texas, originally, so way out west. He trucks in all these great chili peppers from Hatch, New Mexico, because where he's from is right there in that little triangle of New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico. He has all these wonderful things on it. So, it's definitely Texas inspired, but it's just a standout restaurant for sure.
You going to wait another 2 years before you put out another list?
Another top 50 for sure. 2 years, maybe 3. I think doing them every year is too often. And again, I almost push back. The editors want to do them every month because it drives a lot of traffic. They would put one out, every week if I could stand it. It would not change very much from week to week. No, I think it needs to come out on its own sort of cycle based upon how much things have changed. But at least it will be at least 2 years. I do this other, you do these off cycle things. So I'll do a best new barbecue list, just sort of the ones that have opened up. This is the last time I did a best new barbecue list, and that's a good way to sort of, focus my attention on new places. I'll try to maybe work something in there, but it would be at least 2 years, maybe 3. And I think it will depend upon as I'm traveling around eating. Do I feel like the list is significantly different enough? I don't want to just save as and move a couple things around and say here's the new list. I'd much rather have it be different. And this time around, at least for me, it was very different. And I thought it was worth doing every 2 years in, just because so much has changed in the barbecue world in 2 years.
Is this one of the most popular things that hits Southern Living magazine every couple of years?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It gets a lot of attention. What's interesting about these lists is lists inspire spin-off media. So every town that has the local newspaper who has a barbecue joint in the man on the list, they'll have a feature about it, so it gets picked up and it sort of spins around, and it gets obviously tons of traffic, gets picked up and passed around. So the publications love to do these list kind of things. They do drive a ton of traffic. It is one of the better performing type of features out there. I like doing it for a totally different reason. It's more because I think it's really good. It's good to get out and have the discipline of trying to rebuild and visit places and look at the ones you haven't been to and keep it out there. That's how I, that kind of scouting trip is how I keep in touch with what's going on in the barbecue world.
Do you think that that podcast down in Australia did a good job of doing their most influential people, like getting some buzz going around their podcast out of Australia?
I'll say they somehow managed to get everyone talking about it. I don't know how. I've never heard of this podcast out of Australia. I've never listened to it. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. The only thing I know about is probably little clips I saw on social media. But they certainly did manage to get a lot of excitement generated for whoever the heck they are.
Speaking about things that are making a comeback, and it's definitely not the Browns here in Cleveland, I can tell you that. The Q Sheet is coming back. For those that are longtime fans of the show, when we first started doing our segments, we were also referencing portions of the Q Sheet that you were writing as far as talking topics, and you were sending it out regularly. I believe that was a COVID thing. And then kind of dried up because COVID went away and you got involved into some other things that were probably paying money. And where does the time go? However, it appears the Q Sheet is coming back. Why now?
The Q Sheet is coming back in a slightly different form because one of the problems is, over the years, I like all kinds of things. I write about barbecue, but also write about, I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. I write about restaurants here and the food scene here. I like to write about food history. So I have a lot of diverse interests. And after having tried to thought, maybe I'll do 18 different newsletters and all that, it doesn't work. I said, I'm going to do one thing. It's going to be called the Robert F. Moss newsletter. It's going to contain whatever Robert F. Moss wants to write about. But one of the things I want to do is take the old Q Sheet and bring it back. I do it on Substack, which has this idea of sections. So there's a section called the Q Sheet. And so I will have basically the old Q Sheet format for those who were subscribers and like to it. If you just want the barbecue stuff, you can just check the box and just pick that section. If you also want to read about, like, I've actually have one coming out in 2 days. We're talking about some of these 2 great seafood restaurants here in Charleston. If you're interested in my thoughts on Charleston dining, or if you want to hear me talk about, things like Chat GPT and the history of pork steaks and all the nonsense that's going on the internet, I have a channel for that. So you can sort of, pick what you want. But yeah, the Q Sheet is coming back under the umbrella of the Robert F. Moss newsletter. Going with Substack this time around because I don't want to mess with all the technology. It's easy to use. I want to focus on writing and getting things out. I think the one that just came out Monday, I revisit Big Barbecue, which is sort of my term for all the big barbecue restaurant chains, and sort of catch up. So I've got a lot of catching up to do just to some of the topics we used to cover on the Q Sheet that should keep us busy for at least a couple of issues. But that's coming out now. If you go to go to robertfmoss.com, and there's a big link at the top. You can find it in your email. Absolutely free. It will show up in your inbox. I don't know exactly how often, but whenever the heck I feel like pushing one out, should be. I got a bunch of material queued up, so you should be getting a lot of them. But yeah, the Q Sheet is coming back.
RobertFMoss.com is a place to go to sign up for it. And if you haven't perused the Southern Living list as far as top 50 barbecue joints, just Google Southern Living top 50 barbecue joints 2025. You'll get a link. You can go right to it. And then you can tell Robert through direct email or message or whatever if he is right on or right off. And then we can argue about it next month. Robert, always appreciate the time, and we will see you in November.
Yep. Sounds good, Greg. Thanks. Appreciate it.
You got it. Robert Moss right there, a pro as always, long too, which I certainly appreciate. Making sure we're getting all caught up. My dad, Bill Rempe, by the way, shout out to Bill, recovering from a mild procedure. I mean that literally. Saying, the Robert Moss segment is like going to class. Always so much to learn and enjoy. Agreed. So check out that list on Southern Living if you haven't already. And let me do this. For the fans of Big Papa Smokers, I'm going to save you money. But first, it doesn't matter if you're chasing grand championships or just aiming to impress your next backyard cookout. Big Papa Smokers has the rubs that deliver results. Trusted by competition pros and weekend grillers alike. Their award-winning lineup, like Sweet Money, Competition Brisket and Steak, Cash Cow, or Cattle Prod, bring bold, proven flavors to every cut. And for a limited time, they've brought back the fan favorite Cucaracha for a fiery kick that turns up the heat on any cook. Barbecue Central Show listeners, this one's for you. Use promo code BBQ Central 25 at checkout. That's BBQ Central 25 at checkout. All one word, all together there. BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free ground shipping now through October 31st. So you literally have 17 days left to take advantage of this before your free ground shipping goes away. Stock up with all the things you want, and then free ground shipping. You're saving $20, $30, I would imagine, depending on how much you're buying. So once again, BigPapaSmoker.com, and then at checkout, BBQ Central 25 for free ground shipping. Again, good now through October 31st. That's Halloween. And we're back right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back, and we thank Robert Moss for joining us for the extended segment and change. RobertFMoss.com to subscribe to the new Q Sheet that's coming out via Substack. Do you know what that is? This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, available in 3 sizes with a host of accessories. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional, it's a cooker you want to add to the cooking arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. Want that. Just Hold on a minute, sister. Give us a minute. So, we thank Robert Moss, and we thank the folks at Pit Barrel. Let me do this, too, while we're at it. The show also brought to you by McAuliffe Cigars. Yes. Step into the world of McAuliffe Cigars, where each blend is a chapter in a grand tale of craftsmanship and passion. Their portfolio, a symphony of flavors, each note carefully composed to create an unforgettable Nicaraguan smoking experience. Now, Joe and Steven and Keith, there's probably some other of you that have emailed me about your green color series sample. Those have not.
Andrew,
those have not been delivered. Not me not delivering them to you. They just haven't left the humidor of McAuliffe yet. So they were being sent out today after doing a little follow-up. I should see them by end of the week, maybe first part of next week, whatever. So if they don't show up until beginning of next week, I'm not going to be sending them out until the following week at best. If they do show up by the end of this week, I'll get them packaged up, and then I will send them out on Monday before I go to work. So you can have your green color series sample. So just know, Joe, Stephen, and Keith, and anybody else that might be writing in, that this isn't me being tardy per usual. This is me just not having them and then sending them out to you. Once they get to my house, then it will be me tardy as usual, sending them out to you. But the first piece of this puzzle has not been solved yet. And until they hit the deck here in Cleveland, I can't do my part of it to make it even more time consuming. So just FYI. By the way, McAulleffeCigar.com is the website, MICALLEF, McAulleffecigars.com, and use the locator to find a dealer near you. Also, some of you instant chatting to me, Greg, you shaved your head. What's going on with that? I mean, come on, guys. This is not necessarily a new look. Now, I have gone like as close as I can down to skin, but these are the things that we do as fathers. Maybe some of you fathers don't, and you're bad fathers, but I'm not. I'm a good father. When your youngest daughter is in the midst of cosmetology school and she needs a male volunteer to do hair color on, well, by golly, we did it once, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. And so we needed to do it again so she can accumulate so many practice hours, what have you. And then it went all bad. All bad. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but for the last 3 months, I've been growing my hair out. So when she plopped in the hair color this time around, when I rinsed it out and I came back out and saw shock and awe faces from everybody that was in the living room, like, whoa. I said, Marv, I thought we were just going one step darker. And then it was like, well, I guess I didn't remember exactly the color we used the last time. So I ended up going 8 steps darker, whatever it was. Look, it was off-putting. It was grotesque. It was frightening. It was everything that when you see a middle-aged man like me who has dyed hair, that's what you think of. It doesn't look right, and it looks bad. My skin wasn't stained, but it looked weird. That's the word. It looked weird. So I went to work yesterday, and it looked weird, and every time I went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, I was weirded out, and I came back home last night and I said, Mar, I'm sorry. Here are the clippers. Take it down. So, did a little bit of a hair reboot, and we'll start the next 3 months of growing again. It's just hard, because they don't grow that well anymore. Anyway, we're pointing to the second hour. Melissa Cookston is in the green room. We're going to get going right at the top of the hour. So take this time to refresh your libations now. And we'll be back with the origin story of Melissa Cookston right after this. You are listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show right here on the Barbecue Central Show Network. Stick around, be right back.